So here, we're just going to see how this works. So on your paper, you will see different ways of graphing calculator how to do. So you have typing a fraction. A lot of you have kind of talked about how to do that. So if you need to do that on your calculator, remember you can click the alpha, which is the green key, and then y equals. And it's going to be your n divided by d, press enter, and then you can get your fraction there, okay? So that's just something, if you need to know, you can do that. But basically, on here, it tells you exactly how to find the vertex, how to find the x-intercepts, any quadratic equations, which we're going to do regression, and then finding the intersection of two lines. Okay, so we're going to be doing a lot of that information here. Okay, so if you flip, and that's what we're going to do here. There we go. Okay, so let's start off with finding the vertex and x-intercepts. Okay, so how we do that is, of course, we need to plug that into our calculator. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go to the y equals, so press the y equals button. It's at the top. Okay, and then we're going to plug in our function. Now, some of you will see other things. Anytime you need to clear, just press the clear button. Okay, so press that and it gets rid of everything. So we're going to plug in negative 2x squared minus 10x minus 5. So make sure you use the negative button when you're doing the negative 2, not the minus. Remember, your x key is right by the alpha key. So that's what we want to use. X, and then we do squared. And then we have minus 10x, and then minus 5. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to go ahead and press graph to graph this. And graph is once again at the top portion. So your graph should look something like this. Okay. Okay. Now to find any time the vertex, x-intercepts, and we're going to do this also when we do intersection, we're going to do second, the blue button, and then the trace. So that's at the top as well. So second trace. Okay. Now remember we talked about with vertexes, they're either maximums or minimums, right? So if our graph was opening down, is our vertex a max or a min? Max. Yeah, so we're going to scroll down to where we see max, number 4, and that's what we're finding. So you're going to press enter. So you're going to go to number 4, the max. Okay, so now it's going to ask you for a left and right bound. So what that means is, left bound is we want the left-hand side of the graph of the vertex. So you're going to see this little blinking thing. That's what we call as our cursor. So in order to get that, I'm going to use, you can really only use your left and right arrows. That's it. You can't use the up and down. So I'm going to use my left arrow to get my cursor somewhere on the left-hand side of the vertex. Okay, so it just needs to be on the left-hand side of the vertex. That's what left bound means, on the left-hand side. Now, once you have moved your cursor there, you're going to press enter. Now we do right bound.
Of the vertex or the...
Well, of the vertex or of the graph. So same thing, yeah. So now I have to use my right arrow and move my cursor to the right-hand side of the vertex or of the graph, and then press enter. And then don't forget, because I know we did something like this where we press enter 3 times. Okay, you need to press enter one more time. You always press enter 3 times total. Okay, and then that will be your answer there, and that's your vertex.
It says guess.
Yes, press enter.
Oh. Okay.
Press enter. No, just press enter. There you go.
Where?
There's your answer.
Why does it say guess then?
Because it's estimating it. Okay. Anybody else need help?
My graph.
Okay. Okay, there you go. You should be good.
My graph.
We'll do that. You all pass.
Oh. Oh.
press enter. And move your arrow. Move your cursor. And press enter. Press enter one more time. Okay, so our vertex here is negative 2.575. So we're going to write that. There you go. And I know maybe some of you had like negative 2.49999. Then you rounded to negative 2.5. Okay. Okay, now our X-Intercepts. Okay. Now, if we look at this graph here, right, what type of function is it?
Quadratic.
It is a quadratic. So since it is a quadratic, notice that we have two X-intercepts. So we will need to do this twice to find both of them, okay? So we're going to once again do the second. So you always press that blue button, second, and then trace. Now, what's another name for X-intercept? So we go to number 2, where we see the number, or see the word 0. You press enter, okay? Okay, so we should be here. Now, let's talk about this. I'm going to draw it here. So we have this X-intercept on the left-hand side. We're going to try to find that one first, okay? Now, when it asks for a left and right bound, okay, what it means is that left bound is going to be the left-hand side of the X-intercept, okay? Well, if I look at my graph, the left-hand side is actually anything below the X-intercept, or below the X-axis. So that's my left bound. Anything above the X-axis, or X-intercept, that's going to be my right bound. Okay, so basically what I like to do is draw an imaginary line, or draw a line through the X-intercept and see what is on the left-hand side of that line and what is on the right-hand side. So that tells you then what's the left and right bound. Okay, so to do that, to find our X-intercept for that one, I will have to move my cursor, my left arrow particularly, and put it somewhere just slightly below the X-axis. Okay, and then I'm going to press enter. Then I'm going to move my cursor somewhere a little bit above the X-axis for my right bound. Okay? So you don't want to go on the other side because that's going to give you a weird number. Okay? You want to make sure you're still on that same side for the X-intercept. So I press enter, and then I press enter one more time. Anytime you see the word guess, press enter one more time. Okay? And let's go ahead and we'll round to 2 decimal places because I know it doesn't tell us that, but we'll just go ahead and do that. So, notice what our y value is. Anytime we have an X-intercept, what should be the y value every single time?
0.
Yeah. So, we have our first one as negative 4.440. Okay. That's our first one there. Yes.
Minus the x with the
Okay, so anytime you see that, just it's 0 automatically. Okay, now let's be careful on the other side. So on our right hand side, I'm going to once again draw a line that kind of goes through it. Okay, left. Now what do you guys think the left bound is going to be? Above? Yeah, so this time our left bound is going to be above the x-axis because you want on the left hand side of that x-intercept. So that's anything above. And then below is going to be the right. So once again, we need to press second. Oops. We're going to do second trace. We're going to go to 0, which is number 2. Press enter. I will have to use my right arrow. There we go. To move the cursor. And I just want it somewhere a little bit above that x-intercept. Press enter. And then take your cursor, put it somewhere below the x-axis, press enter. And don't forget, anytime I ask you for guess, you press enter one more time. And so here I get negative 0.560 as my x-intercept. Okay, questions there? Okay, let's go and do the next one. So for number 2, if you want to go ahead of me, you can. I'm just going to kind of reiterate what we're doing for example 2. Okay, so once again, we're finding the vertex and the x-intercepts. Okay, so once again, you got to make sure you go to y equals. I do have to clear my equation here, so you just press clear. And I'm going to have x squared minus 6x plus 4 as my equation there. Oh, yep. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to press graph. Now, all of yours were fine because my other class did this. But anytime if you need to change your scale to the standard, which is -10 to +10, you can always go to zoom. So the zoom button is the third at the top. And then go to number 6, the standard. Press enter and it'll get you to that standard. And that's just something if you need to. But a lot of times it should be already there. Okay, so our vertex, is it a min or a max here? Yes. So when I do second trace, I have to do number 3, a minimum. So remember, left bound means we want on the left-hand side, which my cursor's already there, so I'm going to press enter. And I'm going to use my right arrow to move my cursor over just a tiny bit more. Press enter one more time. And then I get this. Now notice, because we are going to round to 2 decimal places, I have 2.999. Well, that should round up to 3, right? So my vertex is 3, -5. So now finding the x-intercept, I do second trace, go to 0. I'm going to find the left hand. So notice that my cursor will need to be above the x-axis to be on the left-hand side. And then somewhere a little bit below to be on the right-hand side. I press enter. And then for my other one, I do second trace again, 0. And so in this case, for my left bound, my cursor is going to be somewhere below. And then I will put my cursor somewhere above for the right bound. Okay, so really if you need to, you can draw that imaginary line to see, well, what's the left-hand side and what's on the right-hand side. And then don't forget to always do that. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that. We will. Okay. So my x is 5.24. Okay, now some of you might have gotten this, some of you might have not. It happens, and sometimes it happens, or it doesn't happen. We see this -1e to the -12. Anytime you see e to the negative and it's a large number, we're just going to make it 0. The reason it does that is because the calculator is going to be a little bit more approximate than, you know, what we do and that stuff. But basically that just represents that we are taking that decimal, moving it over to the left 12 times. And really that would be 0.000000000, I don't know how many zeros I did, 1. And so it is very, very close to 0. So it's just automatically 0. So anytime you do x-intercepts, what should be the y value every single time? 0. So we just have that. Okay. So that is a 5.24. Sorry, that's kind of hard to see. I'll just do that. Okay, questions on that? Okay, now let's get into writing what we call regression problems. Okay, so regressions kind of just help us when we're given data to write an equation. Okay, so for this here, we will tell you what type of regression it is. So like here it says, find the quadratic regression. Okay. And like when we get into polynomials, we'll say write a cubic regression. So we will tell you exactly what type of regression to do. Okay, so notice that we have our table and we're given points here. So we will have to input those points into our graphing calculator. So this is how we're going to do that. You're going to go to what is called the stat key. Okay, So that is, I guess we can count that as the third row right by the arrows. So you're going to press stacked. Okay. Now here we want to edit. So I'm just going to press enter because we're editing. Now you're going to see what is called an L1 and L2 list. Let me bring it down so you guys can see it, okay? So our L1 is going to be represented as the X. In this case, we don't have X, but really it's always going to be like if we are having our tables horizontally, it's always the top. Our L2, which we're going to use, is always going to be the bottom of that table, okay? Now here's the nice part for you guys. You guys have learned how to clear the table. So I'm going to arrow over. So I'm going to use my right arrow over to L1. I'm going to go up to L1 where it's highlighted, and what you're going to do is press clear and enter, and it clears the entire list. Do not press delete, because if you do that, then it actually deletes the entire L1. You just want to press clear, okay? So now, in our L1, we're going to put 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 in there. Now, this is just like matrices, right? Remember when you put the number enter, you do the same thing. So we do 0, enter, 2, enter, 4, enter, 6, enter, 8, enter, and 10, enter. Now, when I go to my L2, I'm going to once again highlight that L2 and press clear. Now, you can delete individual data points. So like if I highlight, like here I have a number 3, if I got that highlighted and press delete, it actually gets rid of that. Okay, so that is another option if you don't have a lot of data points, or if you mess up with a data point, you can delete it instead of retyping everything in. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to put 165, 154.5, 124.5, 115, 128, and 165. So really be careful of the data points you put in, because just like matrices, if you type something in incorrectly, it will give you a different answer. So just be careful. Okay, are we good here so far? Okay, so now how we get the regression? Well, once again, I'm going to press the stat key. Okay, so we want to press that again. So stat. And then I'm going to go and do my right arrow and go to calculate. Okay, because we're calculating. So now I'm going to go down to number 5 where it says quad reg. Quad reg represents quadratic regression. That's what we're wanting. Okay. Once I have that, I'm going to press enter. And then you should see something like this. Okay. So your X list should be L1. Your Y list should be L2. If that is the case, then you're good to go. All you have to do is arrow down to where calculate starts to be highlighted. It's like blinking on calculate. Once you're there, you press enter. And then it will give you the A, B, and C values of your quadratic. Okay. And then we just write that as an equation. Okay. So now be careful, because notice on our table it gives us variables to use, T and P. So we will have to use that. So it does say the table shows the average sale price P of a house in Suffolk County for T years. So I'm going to put P of T to represent, so the price is dependent on the year. Okay. Now I have 1.83. I'm going to round to 2 decimal places here. T squared, then minus 19.55 T plus 172.73. So that's going to be my model I use. Okay, now part B, it asks us, then estimate the average sale price of a house in 2012 using the model. Now, if we're trying to find the average sale price, is that our P of T or T? There we go. So that means we need to plug something in for t. Now if it says of a house in 2012, notice what t represents. It says t years since 1988. So we actually have to do 2012 minus 1988 to get our t value. So what is that, 24 or 34 years? 24, okay. Yes. Okay, so now we're going to take 24 and plug it for every place we see t into our model. So we have p of t equals 1.83 times 24. And this is where you really just plug it into your calculator. And then 172.73. Did we get, when we plugged it in, 602.61? Okay. So that's what we should get. Yeah.
Why would we not plug the 24 and put the t that's next to the
You can. You can say p of 24.
Okay, it's the same.
Yeah. Because what that just represents is that you're evaluating a function. So anytime like we say, oh, f of 2, well, you're just taking that 2, plugging it in for every x variable you would see, and then you get the y value. So that's what we're doing. We're plugging in for x, getting our y. So you can to represent that, you just don't have to. It's kind of up to you. Yeah.
I got 7.7.
Okay, let me redo
Or
this.
757.
Okay, so make sure you
That's
did
what I got,
you...
yeah.
Ooh, okay, let me see what I did here. So we have 1.83, 24 squared, right? So let's just double check that mine is correct. Minus 19.55 times 24 plus 172.73. Oh, you guys are correct. So let me...
I got on the
Yeah, it's just.
Okay, so I definitely did something wrong there. Oh, I just put 1773 instead of 172. There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, questions there? Okay, so that's our answer there. Boop, boop, boop. And that would be in thousands of dollars, so yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. But it's the price of what, a house? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do the next one. As I said before, if you want to go ahead of me, you can. I'm just going to go through this, just so, because we have that video and that stuff, so.
Did houses really fluctuate that much in price? That's
The house was really
And it really depends, like, also where you live. Like, it's insane how prices can change over the years. It's a lot, yeah. Yeah. Housing market is crazy, so, but it's a great investment, so you got the money, do it, because it's a good investment. Okay, so using a graphing calculator, this says to find the best fitting model, we are just going to use a quadratic regression. As I said, we will always tell you what type of regression to do. So either a quadratic or a cubic, and then later on I think we do some other types of regressions, but okay. So here we go once again into our stat. There we go. So we press stat. We want to edit our list, so we press enter. Remember, if you want to clear a list, you need to highlight your L1 and L2, but press clear enter. Our L1 is going to represent our time, so the X, and L2 is going to represent our height, the Y there. So for time, we have 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. So I do 0, enter 2, 4, 6, 8. Clear this, and then I'll put the other numbers. So we got 3, 28, and 40, 3, 28, 40. and then 2726. Remember, make sure that you have the same amount in your L1 and L2, otherwise it'll say error. Then once again, I press Stat Calc and go to Quad Reg, so number 5. And then I just make sure everything looks good there, and I press Enter to calculate, and I should get my A, B, and C values. So the nice part here is that we do use X and Y as our variables, so I can use that. So I have Y equals negative 1.375x squared plus 13.25x plus 4.8, and that's my equation. Then part B, it says then use your model to find the height, which that's going to be our Y, for a baseball after 9 seconds. So I'm going to plug 9 in for X. So Y equals negative 1.375 times 9 squared plus 13.25 times 9 plus 4.8. And we plug that into our calculator, so hopefully I plug it correctly here. And plus 13.5 plus 4.8. Okay, so we should get about 12 point, and once again, I know it doesn't say where to round to, so that's why I'm picking just 2 decimal places, but always make sure you read the instructions carefully to know where to round to. So we're going to round to 2 decimal places, so we have 12.68, and we don't want to forget our label, so this is in feet, so that would be our final answer here. There we go. Any questions there?